All right, time now for a look through the papers with Diptyka Laurent. Hello to Diptyka.
Hi, Will.
Starting with, of course, the context of the war in Ukraine and a lot of reaction in the opinion pages today about Finland and Sweden's bids to join NATO.
Yeah, it's really dominating the editorial pages today. Finland and Sweden are expected to officialize their bids in the coming days to join NATO. And the response in the papers is overwhelmingly positive. The Wall Street Journal says, expanding NATO to accept its two northern friends is a, quote, prudent step and it makes good military sense. The Guardian's editors, meanwhile, say support for Finland and Sweden's membership shows that Vladimir Putin's assault on Ukraine has only gone to strengthen the NATO alliance.
Yeah, some support for those bids, but there are challenges as well.
Well, that's something that the Russian paper Kommersant, not surprisingly, is focusing on. They warn that the two countries' accession to NATO may come with, quote, reservations. They say basically it all depends on what kind of NATO membership these two countries want. Kommersant says Finland could, for instance, refuse to deploy NATO military infrastructure on its territory, like fellow NATO members Norway and Denmark. The bloc also faces, of course, swift retaliation in some form or shape from Russia. Dmitry Medvedev, the former president, already warned that it could lead to a fully fledged nuclear war. But those threats are not really working, at least for the cartoonist from the Times today. Peter Brooks here sees Vladimir Putin in a mangled tank being dragged around by Ukraine while he hurls warnings to Finland.
All right. In Spain, the draft of a new abortion law will be debated next week. And as part of this law, a proposal to give menstrual sick leave to women.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This draft law will be put to the Council of Ministers next week. And for the first time, it appears that the word menstruation is part of the part of women's health rights. El País tells us that, the proposal, quote, recognizes and protects the incapacity caused by severe period pain that some women endure on a monthly basis and would ideally offer sick leave under medical supervision. It's proving a little bit divisive, though. Some fear that this kind of sick leave could penalize potential female hires. It would make companies less willing to hire women. Defenders of the idea, though, say it protects women's rights and actually is a step closer to gender equality. El País says, if approved, Spain will be the first Western country to do so. But you really have to look to Asia to see who the real trailblazers are. In Japan, period pain leave has been a thing since 1947. In South Korea, women can request no pay days off for period pain. Indonesia and Taiwan similarly offer days off. And in Africa, Zambia is the country that allows 1 day a month off for women, and it's done so since 2015.
Oh, wow. All right, Deepti. Let's move on to sports now, and specifically rugby. The United States has been announced as the host of the 2031 Rugby World Cup.
That's right. Rugby and the U.S., they don't really go hand in hand.
Oil and water, I would think.
France, of course, is hosting next year's Rugby World Cup. Now, the World Rugby authorities have announced the winners of the one in 2027 and 2029. So 2027, Australia for the Men's World Cup, 2029, Australia again for the Women's Rugby World Cup, and the following one in 2031 and 2033 for women will be the U.S. hosting those two Rugby World Cups. You might be hard-pressed to even name a rugby player playing for Team USA, but it's definitely part of World Rugby's strategy to promote the sport in countries where the game is nascent. What's even more incredible is that 2 years ago, the USA Rugby went bankrupt, leaving the team and the coach without a job. 2 years later, they won the hosting rights, so it's pretty incredible. Team USA's next challenge, though, is qualifying for the Paris World Cup, which would certainly lend credibility to their bid in the years to come.
All right, Dipti, looking at the calendar today, and it's Friday the 13th.
That's right, it is. And some say, it's an auspicious day. Some are terrified. Legend has it that it comes from Jesus' Last Supper, which was attended by 12 people, according to the Gospels. The 13th person was Judas, who betrayed Jesus and led to his crucifixion on Good Friday. So that's why many people see 13 as an unlucky number. Some are downright terrified of the day. There's even a word for it, you might say, a word that I quite frankly find terrifying to pronounce. Bear with me. The word is paraskevidekatriaphobia.
enough to make anyone scared, I think.
It's on the screen there if you don't believe me. It literally means Friday, 13, and fear of. So if you're afraid of the day, there's actually a word for it. I bet you didn't know this one either, Will. Triskaidekaphobia. Well, that is the fear of the number 13.
All right. I'm not afraid of you saying it, though. I find that quite charming. Finally, from you, the story out of India, a couple are suing their son and daughter-in-law for not giving them grandchildren.
Yeah, we may laugh, but this is a legitimate court case for these grandparents who've apparently been waiting a long time to get some grandkids. They're suing their son and daughter-in-law, saying either you have a child or you pay us $650,000. They calculated that sum as the cost of the couple's wedding reception, luxury car, and overseas honeymoon. They say they also paid for their son to train as a pilot in the U.S., and then he came back to India unemployed. And now, after 6 years of marriage, there's not even a baby. It's certainly one way of encouraging your kids to procreate, but probably not the most efficient way.
Yeah, best to keep it out of the courts, I think. All right, thank you very much, Dipti. As always, you can find our press reviews and other stories on our website, France24.com.